Okay, let's exercise these definitions of even and odd functions using the algebra technique. So um, let's determine if these functions are even, odd, or neither. So I want to determine if this function is even, odd, or neither. And first of all, let me mention every function doesn't have to be even or odd. And the same goes with numbers, right? The number 1/2 is not odd and it's not even. So a lot of people get that confused. So just realize that with functions you don't have to be even or odd either. So let's take a look at this, and let me recall that an even function means that the output for x equals the output for negative x. Number 2, odd means the output for x is opposite of the output for negative x. Okay, so we're going to compare. We need to find the output for x, and we need to find the output for negative x in each case. Here, let me use a different color there. So the output for negative x and the output for x are key to both of these. So we'll do that to determine whether it's even, odd, or neither. So what we'll do first is we will look at the output for x. In other words, f of x. The output for x is x squared plus x plus 1. Okay? The output for negative x is what you get if you plug in negative x to this function, which is negative x quantity squared plus negative x plus 1. And when we simplify that, we get just x squared here, because when we square a negative, it goes away, minus an x in the middle, plus a 1 on the end. So here is the output for x, here is the output for negative x, and they are not the same, they are not equal, so f is not even, not even, and they are not opposites, so f is not odd. Therefore, f is neither even nor odd. Okay? Now, maybe you're confused about what I mean by not opposites. So in other words, let's just mention this quickly. What is the opposite of x squared plus x plus 1? Let's come down here. The opposite of anything is negative 1 times that. So the opposite of x squared plus x plus 1 equals negative 1 times it, which is negative x squared minus x minus 1, right? Because you have to distribute your negative 1. Well, this guy is not the opposite, right? And that's what I was saying here. They're not opposites. So it's not odd. F of x equals x squared plus x cubed. The first thing we want to do is look at f of x, the output for x. Well, that's clearly x squared plus the absolute value of x cubed. So we have the yellow part over here, the output for x. Now we need to look at the output for negative x. So I substitute negative x into the original function, and I get negative x quantity squared plus the absolute value of negative x quantity cubed. And now I need to deal with these negatives as much as possible. This becomes just x squared as it did before, plus, in here now, when you cube a negative, you keep the negative. So this is the same thing as negative and the same thing as cubing x. So I hope you really think about the difference between these two things. Here I'm cubing negative x, down here I'm just cubing x and then taking the opposite of it. Now, in the absolute value, since this negative is separate from that and being multiplied, the absolute value makes this negative go away, so I just get the absolute value of x cubed. Now this is of course appealing to your knowledge about absolute value, so if you're deficient there, you may need to go back and do some more research. So this is the simplified version of f of negative x. It's the blue thing from over here. It's the output for negative x. Well, now you may notice that this equals the output for x. So what that means is the function is even. So f is an even function. We get the same output whether we input x to the function or we input negative x. And I'm sure you're already aware this function is going to be odd. So if you feel like you could figure that out on your own, pause this video and see if you can do it. See if you convince yourself. I'm going to move ahead though. So we first look at the output for x, which is of course x over x squared plus 1. Then we look at the output for negative x. And that's the same thing as negative x over x squared plus 1. And now what we have to do is compare these, the outputs of each of them. They are not equal, clearly. So this function is not even. Now the question is, are they opposites? It may not be that easy to realize. So let's again look at the opposite of the original function. Okay? So the opposite of x over x squared plus 1 equals negative 1 times that. Well, negative 1 is the same thing as negative 1 over positive 1. And when you multiply fractions, you go straight across, and you can see you get negative x on top and positive x squared plus 1 on bottom. And that's exactly what this guy is. So they are, in fact, opposites. So now we can erase our question mark, and we could replace that with a check mark for yes, they are. So f is odd in this case, because the output for x is the opposite of the output for